locally whenever I can. I recommend you do too, whether it's coffee or equipment or other services. Berry Coffee, berrycoffee.com. So how do you feel about the pitching staff right now? Because the funny thing is, I think for the right price, anybody would have wanted them to add a starting pitcher. But of course, what contradicts that a bit is that all of a sudden Pineda's pitching great.
Yeah, he's been arguably right after Barrios, he's been their most consistent starter, and gives them a chance to win. Every time out. I think I think the Twins have won 9 out of the last 12 starts or something like that, and he's just been a quality start machine here for 12 starts or so in a row, just 6 innings and three earned runs or less. And so he's been very good. I think that the starting pitching staff is probably a frontline starter away from being a deep postseason staff, I would say. But I do think that the 2 arms they got for now, Romo and Dyson in the bullpen, make the bullpen an awful lot better. And if you just think about those 2 guys, Dyson's first appearance notwithstanding, those 2 guys, as opposed to what the Twins' options were in the late innings, pick any 2. I mean, these 2 guys are decided upgrades, and it gives the manager an awful lot more flexibility and to use other arms that they have in the bullpen out there in other situations. Getting to these 3 guys, it's going to be closed by committee, right? The 7th, 8th, and 9th are going to belong to these 3 guys in varying combinations the rest of the year, which means that the 5th, 6th, and early 7th innings are going to be the innings that Ryan Harper and Trevor May and Tyler Duffy pitch in, which is a better scenario all the way around for right now. I think if Trevor May ever finds the strike zone consistently with his stuff, he could be right back in the mix in the late last 2-3 innings as well, and may still be. But I think the arms that they got help. And it makes the starting pitching a little bit better because now you've got, Trevor May in the 5th or 6th if you need to, before you get to the other guys, right? So I mean, it helps the starting staff in terms of how deep they go or are needed to go. It really helps the whole staff, those 2 arms, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, let's do some Twitter questions. We have some good ones today. From Rob Wilson, do you feel that the Twins can keep going and win the division this year?
Yeah, I do. I really do. This next, I think we'll have a pretty good idea where they stand by September 1st because of the way the schedule works. It's too bad that they lost that game. They didn't sweep the Marlins. They had that game in hand and gave it back and couldn't push anything across. I had a pretty good feeling about Garrett Cole with Houston beating the Indians, which is what happened. So they didn't lose any ground, but they had a chance to be 4 games up going into this weekend series with Kansas City, and then they've got a pretty big home week after that, home against Kansas City for 3 games, and then they've got a tough series, interleague series with Atlanta for 3 games, and then the Indians, a real pivotal series on the weekend with Cleveland. So they've got 7 tough games after Kansas City. They've got to beat the lesser teams. That's the way Cleveland got back in it. Cleveland went in the stretch from June 15th to about the All-Star break when Cleveland made up all that ground. They had 18 games against Kansas City, Chicago White Sox, and Detroit Tigers. 18 games, they went 16-2, and the Twins had 8 games and went 3-5, and against the same teams, and that's what did it, right? I mean, there's the arithmetic for how they made up all those games, which is going to happen in different times of the schedule. And after they get through this, they had this Chicago, Miami, now Kansas City. They're 5-2 against Chicago and Miami. They have to. I believe that they need to win at least 2 of the games against Kansas City, if not all of them, and then hold their own against Atlanta and the Indians. And then they play an awful lot of games against the lesser teams in their own division, and that's where they just have to do what Cleveland did against the lesser teams.
Yeah, I agree completely. Some other good Twitter questions I want to get to. I thank Tony Hoaglund, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent. Works out of Champlin, serves the entire metro area. Very easy to work with. Handles my insurance. Handles Michael Russo's insurance as well.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number 1 in car insurance since World War II and number 1 in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
Next question from Michael Sweeney. Is the Twins lineup and starting pitching good enough to overcome what the Astros did in acquiring Greinke to fight through the playoffs? I don't think anybody matches up with the Astros on paper.
I agree with that. They just keep getting better. That's a starting staff in the playoffs when you go Verlander, Cole, Greinke in some order. That's obviously about as formidable as it's going to get, and they can catch the ball and hit the ball as well. That's a World Series caliber team. There's no question about it, and you never know how guys are going to perform, but all those guys have done it before. They're battle hardened in the postseason. They're a World Series champion, so they're going to be awfully tough.
Absolutely. From Eric Berg, do you think getting to 100 wins is enough to secure the division?
Oh yeah, 100 wins would surely do it. I don't think it's going to take that many. I think it's going to be somewhere around 92 to 95 probably, and I think the Twins will be there at least 92, and probably closer to 95. It really will depend on how they do against their own division. Obviously, as I was saying, they play the majority of their games, down the stretch against their own division, and they've got 10 games left with Cleveland. Just playing 500 against Cleveland and then doing what they've done all year long against the lesser teams probably wins them the division. So, and I think that probably will end up somewhere around 92, 93, 94 wins.
From Eric Berg, do you think I just read that one. From Monty Meyer. Roy, can you talk about the clubhouse reaction to a blown save like the one with Dyson? It had to be a tough one to take.
Yeah, it's tough. I will tell you that I'm sure that the guys in the clubhouse were happy to get Romo and Dyson. I think they know them by reputation. They were happy to get them, and I think more than anything, the guys in the clubhouse were feeling really bad for their new teammate, wishing that hadn't happened to him, as much as they were feeling bad about losing the game. I mean, the offense, 3 runs in the 9th inning needs to be enough. Obviously, a 3-run lead, that needs to be enough. I'm not gonna say the offense should have done more. Sometimes you just don't, and 3 runs should be enough. But in wondering how the guys in the clubhouse feel, I think they feel bad for Dyson, and they feel a little bit chagrined that in the 10th, 11th, 10th and 11th and 12th innings, they couldn't push another run across.
Yeah, absolutely. And going through Twins history, there are only 2 closers in my memory that people just, were willing to get, that either were willing to get mad about or were willing to acknowledge belatedly retroactively that, man, that blown save really killed us. One was I've heard all the stories about Ron Davis and Jimmy Crack Corn, and that Kirby Puckett was pretty happy that Ron Davis was no longer a Twin when that finally happened. The other one was Aggie's blown save against the A's late in the 92 season. That 92 Twins team was excellent. It was really, in a lot of ways, every bit as good as the 91 championship team, which was a great team. And, Aggie gives up the 3-run homer to the guy whose name I can't even think of at the moment. And the Twins go into a tailspin, the A's pass and go on. Those are the two times I remember people talking about, man, we just didn't get over that.
Yeah, I think that happens. It very, very rarely, but it does happen. I remember both the scenarios you're talking about, and those were tough ones. This one is. This was not critical. I mean, they had a nice road trip. It would have been a great road trip. It would have pushed them out to 4 games. But I don't believe the Twins are going to lose the division by 1 game. And I don't think that psychologically that loss is at all devastating to this group. They're a resilient bunch. They're an exuberant, confident bunch. And I don't think this is one of those times.
And I agree with you. I just thought I'd bring up the historical precedents, but I agree with you. I don't think that was devastating. I think people understand that the guys probably had some nerves going on yesterday. Again, we're talking about the Thursday afternoon game. We're talking here on Friday. Joe Nathan and Jerry Bell going into the Twins Hall of Fame. Wrote about Joe in the Friday Star Tribune. He was, for when he was at his best, he was as good as anybody. What made him so effective?
Well, he just had great stuff, and he had what all great closers have to go along with the great stuff. He was able to be who he was in big situations, and not have the situation make him not as good make the stuff not as good. He had the ability, as all good closers do, to be tougher than nails, when he had to be, and he had to be a lot, because he used to remind me an awful lot of Don Stanhouse.
Don Stanhouse, 6-pack.
Yeah, with the Orioles, Earl Weaver's 6-pack. And referring to how many cigarettes Earl would go back and smoke while Don Stanhouse was was loading the bases before he was able to get the save. Joe Nathan was a little bit like that too. That great stuff, and then he'd walk 2 guys in the in the ninth and have to pitch. He'd get himself in jams and then pitch out of it. He did that a fair amount, but boy was he good, and he was. He had early, especially early in his career, he had a great fastball and a great slider. Later on, he developed a slower breaking ball and a changeup, and he just did whatever it took to close games out. He's a Twins Hall of Famer for sure.
And Jerry Bell going in. Jerry Bell, interesting career. He became kind of an ally of the Pohlads. He ends up becoming president of the Twins, and he was president of the Twins at a time when they really. Once they got past the championships, they weren't spending money. They weren't having any luck moving toward a new stadium. They had contraction come. I mean, it was a bleak period for a long time there. Once they got past the championships, and it was hard to tell, how good at being a team president Jerry Bell was. But then they shifted. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. I was saying then they shifted him toward helping them get a new ballpark, and I know that he was really good at that. He was really good at lobbying. He was really good at connecting with legislators and because the Twins screwed up everything when they first started looking at the stadium. They had basically Pohlad come out and say, I'm going to give this much. Then it was quickly revealed that what he had referred to as a donation was actually a loan, and it made him look terrible. And they kind of went, they were terrible at asking for a new ballpark at first. And then Jerry Bell kind of got involved. And he helped them move toward, instead of trying to threaten their way to a ballpark, he went to kind of telling people and asking people, hey, wouldn't it be great if Minnesota had a great Major League Baseball ballpark that you just go to and bring your family and see the sun and all this? And that shifted everything. And eventually they get, in part because of the 2000 teams that were really good and really well liked too, they kind of ended up shifting everything, and they ended up getting the ballpark. So I think Jerry gets a lot of credit for that.
Jerry Bell is a ballpark genius, and the